Power Stone was a 3D arena fighter released in February 1999, both in the arcade and on the Sega Dreamcast. It was developed by Capcom, and it's got a lot of their fighting game DNA, but with wacky items and objects and furniture to interact with mid-combat. It's a really fun and simple game with a colorful cast of characters. I would summarize the game's plot, but this half-asleep narrator does a better job than I ever could.
In the 19th century, people are strong believers of superstition and legend. Adventurers seek the world for fortune, glory, and a legendary treasure which has the power to make dreams come true. That treasure is known as the Power Stone.
Just 2 months after the game launched, in April of 1999, we got an anime adaptation which was developed at the same time the game was, although the English dub didn't come out until 2003. It's really cool to see an anime being made alongside the game. It makes it feel like Capcom really wanted to push the game out there in as big of a way as they could. Usually anime adaptations of games take a bit to come out once a fanbase has established, so this is really cool to see. As you heard from the game's very excitable intro, the story takes place in the 1800s. We see our protagonist, Edward Falcon, in some kind of boxing match. He's getting his ass beat, but then he thinks about the legendary champion Valgus, and he gets him the kick he needs to just barely win the fight. As we see him return home, we see he's received a package from his father, a precious stone, and we also get to hear that our very obviously British lad sounds, well, not so British.
Thanks a lot, Dad. Always digging up the past instead of worrying about your family's future.
And instead of having the Union Jack on his shoulders, it's got the Scottish flag instead. Turns out the anime is set in a different world than ours, and he's from Sunland here, which is a really goofy name. Edward's butler, Apollos, shows up to tell him that he needs to come back to his family, as he's the master of the estate while his dad is gone. But all Edward wants to do is to become a renowned fighter, and he doesn't seem interested in whatever his family does. It's never really explained. We just know that they're rich, and that's all. Edward gives the precious stone to his butler, and it turns out that these pirates, named the Octopus Twins, are after the package. Which makes me wonder why his dad didn't tell him this in the letter he also sent. I mean, if dangerous people are after it, it'd be nice to let his son know that he was potentially in danger. Anyways, he beats the wacky and somewhat annoying Octopus Twins.
Oh boy, that's smart, really smart.
And the butler suggests it might be a Power Stone. And then we see how his dad just dipped to find the stones with this cheesy line.
I'm off to search for miracles and wonders and bring them back to you. Farewell, my son. Remember, always be brave!
So I guess his dad has always just been bad at explanations. Edward comes across Rouge, a fortune teller. She tells him that she sees his future in the stone, but then he awkwardly tries to hit on her and then realizes the octopus gang is outside. So he chases after them. He gets cornered, but he manages to escape and crashes into a performance. The pirates yell something about the stones, which makes the performers very interested. He then runs into Ryoma, a samurai who's also searching for the stones. He already has one of his own, and we see both the stones pulsating as if they're responding to each other. But somehow, Edward still thinks it's all just a myth, until he's forced to fight and suddenly transforms, shooting missiles everywhere and getting rid of the pirates. Ryoma challenges him to a duel the next day, and so ends the first episode. The next day he goes back to Rouge to see if she can help him track down his father, but it turns out the performers he ran into the last day are secretly a clan of ninjas, who are also searching for the stones. One of those performers, Ayame, tries to take the stone from him, but he fights her off. As she returns to the rest of her clan, we also see that her brother totally has a crush on Edward.
And on top of it, he's a real charmer too.
Anyway, Edward gets to Rouge's tent and tries to hit on her again.
You can help a lot. I've come back for that love potion we talked about.
I take my work seriously. Would you please leave my tent if you don't?
Yeah, but what was I talking about? I was just kidding, you. I came back for a reading, didn't I? Didn't I?
I'm sorry.
Apollos apologizes, and she tells him they have to search the world to find a stone, and that Edward's father is in danger, which makes Apollos very worried. The stone then gives them a clue, showing his father with Valgus, the champion, and they try to figure out where to go next. Then he tells us that he doesn't care about finding his father because he got bullied as a kid, and his dad was too stupid to realize that it wasn't just them wrestling and playing. I guess this is an attempt to make us feel more sympathetic towards Edward, but he's too much of a dick for me to feel that way. More on that later. Then we get the same situation as the last episode where they're surrounded. Edward transforms, shoots missiles and wins. And of course, he forgets about the duel with Ryoma, who's just been waiting there all day. So the next episode, Apollos finds a map with a mark on it, and Edward decides that he can both escape his responsibilities and find out what the Power Stones are all about. Meanwhile, Ryoma tries to find Edward and runs into Rouge. She also seems to take a bit of a liking to him.
I see that you are also a swordsman. Are you? The orb knows all.
And me, I know nothing at all. All I know is the sword.
Oh? You know, that's very attractive.
Eventually, Edward and Ryoma meet again, and after catching up, they have their duel, and both of them transform. Anyways, the fight is a draw, which makes Ryoma disappointed, but Rouge compliments him regardless.
Ryoma!
Huh? Oh, it's you, Rouge.
I thought you were wonderful.
Please don't say that!
Now back to what I was saying about Edward. I pretty much enjoy all the characters in the show that aren't him. I feel like I've seen the exact character that Edward is multiple times before. He's a pretty boring protagonist. I found myself liking the side characters a lot more than him. There's nothing about Edward that's appealing. He's just kind of cocky and annoying. He only cares about fighting. He starts off not really giving a shit about anything happening around him. And the other characters actually have to trick him into caring about the plot. Like in one episode where someone named Jack is going around stealing jewels from people. He doesn't actually care to help until Rouge tells him to. But the good thing is he does actually start developing into a more likable character as the show goes on. But you will see later on how much of a dick this guy can be. As the show goes on, they explore different lands and find out that the Power Stones are connected to different people. So Edward can only use the red one that he got originally. We eventually meet Wang Tang and they train at his dojo together. Rouge follows along to guide them and also continues to hit on Ryoma, which Edward doesn't like.
Enough about training.
Ryoma!
Oh, Falcon!
Take your hands off my Rouge! What do you mean, your Rouge?
It's kind of gross that he says my Rouge, like he staked his claim on her. I mean, she keeps rejecting him and is clearly into Ryoma. It's just another reason to dislike Edward. I mean, in episode 8, they crash land on an island and look at how he treats Wang Tang.
To make a bonfire. How else can we signal a passing ship to rescue us? We'd better get moving before it gets dark. Hey, hold on a minute. Huh? Since when were you elected captain of this ship? I'm just trying to help. That won't do. No? That wood's much too green. It won't burn. Give me a break, will ya? Hey! Boy, that was a close call. How would you like this for a close call, huh? What are you doing? I saved you from eating poison fruit. You're lying! I'll prove it to you then. The fish are dead.
Like, Wang Tang is such a sweet character. He's only trying to help and he's always so positive. This is also the episode where we see the pirate leader, Kraken, or Kraken as they keep saying for some reason. Kraken beats the shit out of Edward. Nice. Kraken also happens to have a power stone of his own, and he can use it to control animals. So after getting beat up, Edward gets captured. Of course, Wang Tang helps him out, and after a rematch with Kraken, Edward apologizes about how he behaved. I mean, he's not an entirely bad person. He's still a good guy, I guess, but man, is he a dick. Honestly, it makes me wish that Ryoma was the protagonist instead. He's just a much more enjoyable character. Since he's from a small island and he's seeing the world for the first time, it'd be a great way for us to learn about the world more naturally. And I can't get enough of him and Rouge. It's really cute.
Oh, Rouge.
Although speaking of Rouge, I feel a lot of her fortune telling ends up being sort of pointless. Like, most of the time she'll say something along the lines of, I see monkeys and eagles, and then later they have to deal with monkeys and eagles. While other times it's more vague, like saying a shadow will cover the land, and it turns out to be a giant crocodile. That's the shadow, I guess, and honestly, it doesn't feel like it adds much. But as a character, I like her. And when it comes to the other people we meet, I have to say how much I enjoy Gunrock's character. They meet him at a casino and this line comes up.
You know, you could be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Which is pretty funny considering the Guinness Book of World Records wasn't around until 100 years after this was set. The English dub tends to add a lot of jokes that sometimes work and sometimes just fall flat and kind of ruin the moment. Anyways, Gunrock is great. He's a sweet guy who takes care of his kids and he's just looking for love and he's super fun and man, I love this big old doofus. I also really enjoy Ayama and her brother. They're a fun duo. I like watching them as they try to steal the stone but slowly become more and more allied with the group. It's a fun dynamic. Although we do get a few anime-isms that I'm not too keen on. I mean, like, she's 14, so I kind of feel like it's hard to play it off as just comedy. They also do like an upskirt shot later, which is like, why? We don't need that. Anyways, once they officially ally with the group, it feels like a satisfying evolution of their bond. So we see the characters travel to new places like Moonland, which is just Japan. There's more run-ins with the pirates, and we find out that Ayame likes Edward, as well as the fact that she can also use the Power Stone. The same one that Kraken uses, actually. And eventually we get to Soil Town, which is in a feud with the Eagle Tribe. That's where we meet Galuda. They find out that the sheriff is actually behind the whole feud, and that there isn't really any conflict between the Eagle Tribe and the townsfolk. I didn't think they'd try to pull off a story about Native Americans and settlers. It's kinda wild. Anyways, Galuda joins the gang as they chase after the pirates. Galuda is an okay character, but I find that I don't really have a whole lot to say about him. And he also joins the gang so late that I don't feel like he gets enough development for me to really enjoy him so much. But Ryoma and Rouge are still cute.
Actually, I would call that a pretty good workout.
Isn't he just the greatest?
When it comes to the visuals of the show, the animation is fine. There really isn't too much to talk about here. I mean, I love how the style is identical to the games. It translates very well. And like I said before, it's fun to see the game's moveset represented in animation. But the fights themselves aren't anything too special for the most part. There's a few moments here and there where it looks great, but those are few and far between. And outside of those moments, it's all pretty standard stuff. Sadly, I am only able to watch the English dub, and they completely changed the soundtrack. During fights I don't mind it, but they often play this weird comedic music, even when they're having a serious conversation.
When first starting out, I was small and weak compared to all the others. So defeat became my constant companion.
And I tried to look for a subtitled version. I couldn't find official or fan subs anywhere, so I was kinda stuck on this one. Now the whole twist of the show is completely ruined if you already played the game or even just know the full roster. So I'll put a spoiler warning here. You can skip to this time if you wanna check out the show for yourself. They go to the pirate fort to defeat Kraken. It turns out most of the pirates he's hired are actually just fishermen from this local town who very much missed their family members. They were all promised riches beyond their beliefs by Kraken, but are pretty much just treated like shit by him. So the gang finds Kraken and manages to take him down, and after a long fight, they more or less ruin his entire pirate empire. But then they start having their stones stolen by all kinds of crazy monsters, and they turn out to be fighters from Valgus' team. Valgus transforms them using his dark power stone, and we see Valgus using the orphanage he was paying for to basically have the orphans do his bidding. It's kind of obvious because everywhere the characters go, they always see posters of Valgus, and Edward always has to point out how good he is. But now Edward has to face the fact that Valgus really is the ultimate bad guy after all. So they use the map they got from Edward's dad to find Dark Land and find out the truth. So they get to the island and Jack reappears to get the red power stone back, as it apparently used to belong to his family a long time ago. But they all died in a fire, and he's all alone, and the only thing he cares about is having the stone, which is why he was stealing jewels in the first place. Edward just decides to let him have it, which the rest of the group isn't exactly happy about. I mean, it's a really fucking reckless thing to do. It's not like he could have waited until after he beat Valgus to give it to him. No, he doesn't now. Without the power stone, Edward still chooses to fight Valgus, while the others try to get back the stones they lost, and also to save Pride Falcon, Edward's father. They reunited a few episodes ago, but it wasn't exactly treated like a big deal. But anyways, now he's been taken hostage. Valgus explains to Edward that what he wants to do is to use the power stones and their ability to grant one wish to make a new world where only the strong will survive. A world where fighting is the only thing that matters. Valgus completely destroys Edward, and as the gang comes back to help Edward, Valgus lets his dark power stone take control and, well, this is some fucking Akira shit. This is also the final form it takes in the game, which is super cool to see it animated. Valgus blasts away the gang, and even Jack shows up to help out, though it gets knocked away too. He gives the stone back to Edward, calling him his friend. Edward uses all of the stones to turn himself into a new form, and we see a glimpse of Valgus' inner humanity in the form of a child before he's destroyed. The stones then shoot off into the different corners of the world once again, and everyone can return to their lives, and Edward decides to continue to explore the world with Apollos. Overall, the show is good, but not good enough for me to recommend everyone to go and watch. I think it's a great companion piece to the games, but on its own merits, it's a little lacking. That being said, I thought it was a fun watch. It has enough memorable characters and unique locations to keep me engaged, and there's nothing that the show really gets super wrong. It's just that it doesn't do anything especially well. I think the strongest part is probably the cast of characters, which is a good thing to get right for sure. It kind of reminds me of the Medabots anime, and how it's a very comedic adventure with fun and colorful characters and goofy villains, but it also takes itself seriously. I think Medabots handled it a lot better. That show is fucking amazing and absolutely worth a watch. Even without considering the games, Medabots on its own is a fantastic show. While the Power Stone anime definitely made me want to play the games more, but the anime on its own isn't something that everybody needs to watch. So after the show finished airing, the game got a sequel, Power Stone 2, in the year 2000. The game went in a pretty different direction, making it more like a party game than a fighting game. The stages move from area to area, there's more items as well as brand new features like vehicles and hectic environmental obstacles to avoid while fighting. And while the first game was a more traditional 1v1 fighter, the sequel goes up to 4 players at a time. This makes it a fun party game, but the fact that the stages are so hectic, it does take the focus away from the combat itself, and I feel that makes the game less fun to replay because the stages will always play out the same. It makes it a more repetitive experience. I think it's great for small multiplayer sessions, while I think the original game is a more fun pick up and play whenever type of game. Then in 2006 we got Power Stone Collection for the PlayStation Portable, an enhanced port of the original 2 games with a few tweaks and new features. And outside of a short-lived manga that only got 6 chapters, that's it. That is the entire Power Stone franchise. It's a shame. I would have loved to have seen how the games would have evolved. I mean, I prefer the first game over the second, but I still wish we got to see more. The games were fun, satisfying, and colorful. They have some really unique gameplay, and it's a shame the franchise is pretty much dead. Hopefully sometime soon we'll at least get some kind of re-release or HD remaster, so people can experience these games easier today. And as for the anime, it's okay.